Hey, Tisha, you were a part of Black History.
Hmm.
I can remember going to school, and I recall that every time it was Martin Luther King Jr. birthday,
Mhm.
a lot of the minorities would be absent. And
Hmm.
Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday during that time had not been signed into legislation. And what I'm saying is, it seems like a lot of times we're doing type of petitionary, I don't know if that's a word, but
It is
sort of
today.
like this petition type status, or we're showing we're going to do this. And it's like us rallying around this idea of this needs to be enacted, and then finally it becomes a part of law, right?
Okay.
But I vividly recall when I was in elementary school, because I'm not gonna lie, I was a little nerd, so I probably showed up on Martin Luther King Jr. birthday, and then all of my friends of color would not be there.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Sip and Share. Sip, and share. Hey, we're very excited to have a brand new version of her song. It changes every single episode. And they just keep getting better. It's actually Sip and Share. Sip and Share. Let's go. That's how you're supposed to do it. But hey, to each his own.
You're like under my bars. You're like the background to my vocals.
As the co-founder of this song, I have 51% stake in how this song is to be constructed.
Okay. All right. We'll let you believe that. Anywho, babe, what are you sipping on today?
Let's see, because I actually came down to my recording studio and it was in the cup, so let me see. It's brown.
You know
that's
what?
Promising. That's promising.
One day we should do blind testing of what are you sipping on.
Oh, that
like what are you sipping on? Blind testing.
It's brown.
Okay, go ahead.
It's not what you think.
It's
not what I thought.
What you think.
This is apple juice from the apple.
Yeah, and I have the very same thing. We're still keeping it natural.
Healthy, son. Toast. Cheers.
And I'm thirsty.
Salute. The apple.
This fireplace hot.
Thank you for your juice, apple. Such an amazing fruit.
Anywho, so we are in the month of February, and as promised, we told you guys we wanted to talk to you about love first, and then we wanted to acknowledge that it is Black History Month.
This is an exciting month. There's a lot happening this month.
Do you know at all how Black History Month started?
I could guess. I think,
all right, go ahead.
But I don't want to do that. It is easier for me to listen to you with the actual knowledge than to try to sit up here and look smart and be wrong. So I'm going to let you teach me.
Well, I want to talk about a common theme when it comes to African-American culture or history. But because it seems like a lot of times when we're trying to get something acknowledged, we kind of follow the same route. And I can remember being a part of one of those things. So anyway, Black History Month first started out as Negro History Week. Carter G. Woodson, he was a big founder and proponent for acknowledging African-American history. And like I said, they call it Negroes History Week, I believe.
Oh, okay.
It was 1 week in February, and it was on the week where it was Abraham Lincoln's birthday. I think it's February 12th. And also Frederick Douglass is February 14th. So they picked that particular week. Then it kind of, progressed as time went on. Around about 1969, some universities started to advocate for a Black History Month, as well as African-American educators. And Kent State, I believe, was one of the first schools to celebrate African-American or Black History Month in 1970.
Wow.
It took 6 more years, and then finally it was signed into legislation that February would be acknowledged as Black History Month.
Nice.
1976, Black History Month. And I guess they just kept it at February because of the initial Negro History Week, which was 1 week in February. But So yeah, so that's how Black history came about. And I know there's this big thing out there like, okay, there's 12 months. We get the shortest one.
Mm.
And so, like I said, seeing that this was first started in February, it
And
gave me
why?
some comfort and
Sure.
it made sense as to why February was the chosen month.
Knowing your
Yeah.
history is important. I'll admit I haven't always been huge on history overall. It took me a while to kind of get to that point, but I actually like history now. So, and that means all types of history. So, the more you know, the more you know, right? So, just like you looked up and you know the reason why February was the month to be observed for Black History Month, you know, and understanding the history of things, you can actually articulate and understand why things are the way they are. So, as you mentioned, I think it's important to shed light on people, just people as a whole, that have had an
Yeah.
amazing contribution on the way that we actually live and live our lives today. And some of those folks have been forgotten, and it is important to study that history. So that they aren't forgotten, right? As they say, some of the greatest ideas are buried in a cemetery. We've got to shed light on those folks that have given such a great contribution to our lives here today.
Yeah, and that are no longer here and that are still here. Give them their flowers while they're here,
Absolutely.
right?
Yep.
And so it reminds me, my our daughter, she's been going into school subbing here and there. And then there was also this video as well that I think she sent to me from TikTok. So two separate incidents, right? So she's at the playground and this little kid comes to her and the kid is like, I want to tell you about, she's telling her about Martin Luther King and she's telling her about where he died and she's telling her, and I think my daughter said, I didn't even know that part. And she's telling her all of these different things, right? And the color of that child was Caucasian.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard this
Yeah.
story.
Yeah, and then the TikTok that I received, there was this Caucasian little boy,
Yeah.
and he was talking about Martin Luther King.
Right.
And I guess all of these things were happening because his birthday was
Right,
coming
right,
up,
right.
you know, in January. And so he was talking about Martin Luther King, and he was like, the whites killed him. And I'm just quoting what he said, the whites killed him. And his mom had to say, I have bad news for you, you're a white. And then he said, well, I'm a good white. You know, and so they had to differentiate
Yeah.
that it doesn't matter your color. Different people show hatred towards one another despite their color.
That's
So
right.
yeah, you can be a good person no matter what your color, and you can
Absolutely.
acknowledge
That's right.
others of different race
That's right. That's
and
right.
ethnicities, right?
Right. There are
Yeah.
there should be no predetermined stereotypes on either side,
Yeah.
right? Because there are good and bad people on all sides. I think, as I stated before, though, we have to make sure that we do not forget those good people that did great things, or great people that did great things from way back when
Yeah.
to more recent times to still doing it today, because it hasn't always been taught in traditional education. So I think it's important to just dig back into that and just go, oh man, I actually did not know that.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the importance of just kind of studying our history overall.
Yeah. Now, I'm not going to lie to you guys. For me in school, history was a subject that I just, oh my gosh, history, it just brought the sleepiness on, right? So, what I want to say is there's tons of ways to dig into your history, especially now with technological advances. You can watch videos, you can do the traditional reading of it, or you can go and visit places.
Right.
The National African American Museum in
Oh,
Washington,
yeah. Get educated.
D.C. Oh my goodness,
Yeah.
guys. I'm
It's
going to
amazing.
say this. Make sure you carve out like a 2 to 3
Oh
day,
my
because
gosh.
we did it
It's
in
so
one.
much to see.
Oh, it is
It's
so
much to see.
much.
And,
So much.
and it would shock you
Yeah.
once you walk in there, when you see the amazing diversity of the folks that are in there observing, learning, reading,
Yes.
studying. It is
Yes.
absolutely amazing. And it gives you a little bit of positive hope. You know, when there's so much negativity out in the world, there are people out there that are willing to learn, willing to listen. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
There's folks right now, we talked about people making history. There's folks making history today. And I can speak just personally from a military standpoint, because that's my affiliation. We look at people like General C.Q. Brown, who is the first African American
Oh yeah.
service leader, not
Yeah.
just in the Air Force, but the first African American to lead a service. Period. Right. I think that's extremely huge. Secretary of Defense Lloyd Austin, the first African American ever to be able to do that. I think that's awesome. And then
Yeah.
there's conversations being had where General Brown could essentially be the first chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff ever in history, right? He's in the running for that. So people are making history today, and we need to make sure that we acknowledge those people.
Yeah,
too.
so you can't bring up the people who are in Washington without bringing up my man and woman Michelle and
Facts.
Barack Obama.
Facts. That's right.
And clap for that.
That's right.
And clap for that.
Strides are being made. We got to keep striving.
One of the things we need to recognize, I've read her book, Becoming. I'm reading her book, The Light We Carry. He's reading Barack Obama's book.
Mhm.
One of the things we need to recognize and pay homage to and just humble ourselves is that a lot of these people that we are recognizing, they had to give up a lot
Yes.
to make that particular stride
Right.
in life for African American culture, right?
That's right.
And so you need to not only just reflect upon what they did, but what they gave up.
Absolutely.
What they gave
Yeah.
up to be able to stand in the gap for African American people to make that particular stride.
Yeah, they gave up a lot. Lots of sacrifices were made. So
Yeah.
when you're doing your research and your study, and just kind of think about that and put things into perspective, right? Not only did they give up a lot, but they overcame a lot.
Yes.
We experience challenges here today, and it's not to degrade or diminish the challenges that we are experiencing here every day. But sometimes when I go back and I dig into the archives about these folks, and I was like, man, they did all of that at the same time while overcoming challenge X, challenge Y, discrimination, whatever it may be. To me, that's extreme power. And it's something that I kind of made up a while ago. And you hear the phrase, standing on the shoulders of giants. We're standing on the shoulders of giants. But I added, don't just stand there, do something, right? The way has been paved for us to continue to do great things. So don't take it for granted is what I mean by that. When you find yourself standing on the shoulders of giants, don't just stand there, do something.
Yeah. And so I was just having a conversation with someone about this the other day, and they were talking about how their husband is very stubborn and he's stuck in tradition and the way it was.
Right.
And I posed to her, the people during that time that came before him, they made it the way it was. They made the best of the way it was. But I would surely doubt that if we talked to them, they would say, keep it the way it was.
Right.
They would want us to move forward with the change.
Absolutely.
They would want us to progress. They would want us to reach across the aisles of things, right?
That's right.
So I do say, like, hey guys, you're reading about these people, but you can be one of those people too.
That's right.
You can be one of those people. We can be reading about his story or her story, right?
His story or her story. I know you call it
Yeah.
that. Speaking of people, I think it's important for us to highlight two people during this particular segment. And I know we discussed this, and what I think is important is that we shed light on some of those people that may be a little bit more in the shadows. There are some very prominent people that did some very great things, but there's a lot of people that may not necessarily be as deep into the spotlight, but also did some amazing things that have a positive impact on the way that we live our lives to this very day. So I'll let you highlight your person, and then I'll go last.
So I was very interested. So we challenged ourselves to find someone that we didn't really know a lot about, because like he said, a lot of times it's and again, these people did great things, and it's not to take away anything, but we talk about Martin Luther King, we talk about Malcolm X, we talk about Rosa Parks, we talk about Harriet Tubman, we kind of get into talking about Sojourner Truth, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there are a lot of more African American individuals that we can highlight and bring to the forefront.
That's right.
So we're asking you to expand your knowledge beyond the popular people that we usually talk about, and expand it to, you know what? I wonder who did make this. Like for me, how did Black History start? There was this guy, this African American, right? I just learned about him. We know about Madam C.J. Walker.
Sure.
And I do like the fact that we're starting to highlight more individuals as well.
Yep.
So for me, I looked up and I saw, because I am currently writing, so it interested me that there was this lady, Phyllis Wheatley. She became the first American author. And get this, guys, she was 12 years old.
Oh, wow.
And I believe it was in 1773. Don't quote me. And then she wrote poetry. She died very young. She was only 31 years of age. I believe she caught a disease. Her writing wasn't much of a support for her at that time. A lot of things in the arts, we don't make the money, right?
Sure.
And even back then, it was hard to make a living off of that. But that and she was right here in Boston.
Wow.
We're not too far from Boston.
Wow.
She was in Boston. They taught the people who bought her, taught her how to read, how to write. And she was able to be the first African-American author at the age of 12 years old.
Nice.
Yep.
There's a tie there. There's that personal connection there. So I did the same thing that the person that I wanted to highlight.
Yeah.
Mark Dean. Mark Dean is not that far back in history, actually. He was actually born in 1957. He is the co-founder of the IBM personal computer, which is where my personal tie comes in. I have an information technology background. We're coming at you right now using technology, using a computer and cell phones and all of that good stuff. As the co-founder with a PhD from Stanford, this co-founder helped to create, develop, invent the first IBM personal computer, as well as the way the keyboards and the peripherals connect to that computer. That is a huge impact on how we operate to this very day. We're literally using some of this technology to this very day, but it's a name you don't hear about every day. We use the stuff every day, but we don't hear about the people that invented them every day that look like us. That's the person I wanted to highlight today.
Yeah, definitely. I remember we're of the age of where it went from typewriters and then right at the peak of our high school.
Don't tell them too much, man. Don't tell them too much.
Right at the peak of our high school, we started having computers, and boy, them things was big and heavy. Lord, I mean, I remember our first computer. Oh, goodness, that thing would look like.
Yeah.
I wish we had it.
I do too. They're huge. And I wanted to put emphasis on the fact, the personal computer, because when computers were actually invented, they took up the size of an entire storage building, like a computer. So personal computers, like something I use myself to be the co-founder of, taking something that's so huge and compressing it and compacting it down into a personal device. It's amazing to me. So again, that's ingenuity right there. That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's
definitely. I meant to look this up before we came on, and I neglected to. So I'm just going to describe what I saw. There was a TikTok out there. I think it was Malcolm Jamal Warner, and this guy had taken, I believe it was a DMX song, and he says like all of these different African Americans, people's names. So, earlier I was telling you guys, we have so many avenues to learn African American history, to learn about Black history, going to the National African American Museum, listening to particular songs, and even going back to their songs back in the day. There was so much that they were talking about, the political and the fight and everything like that. Those songs, if you really listen to the lyrics, you can learn a lot about what they were going through and what they were fighting for at those times. I mean, and I made it a point for myself when I was running. I used to run to Lift Every Voice and Sing because I felt bad that I didn't know the song. I don't know the song. And so
we call that the Black National Anthem. If
Lift Every Voice and Sing. And so I would, in order to build endurance, they say talk as you run too. So I would just repeat the words.
Beyonce over there.
No. No. So I would repeat the words and things like that. So, so music is a way. Just watching documentaries. We just watched a very good documentary. The people are down in Alabama, I believe, and they uncovered the slave ship
they came in. The very last slave ship that ever came.
Came in illegally, actually.
They came in illegally to the United States. They actually found it. I wish I could remember the name of the documentary. Once we look it up, we'll drop it in the comments. But there's literally descendants living down south right now of the Africans, the very last African or slave ship that came to the United States illegally, mind you. It was burned. I don't want to give away too much, but bottom line is they found the ship.
Yeah. And there was a documentary writer, I can't remember her. I'm sorry, guys. When I learn stuff, I kind of get the whole concept idea. She had filmed some things, and her book never came out. And the attached film that, because they said you need to edit this, but she wanted to keep it in the lingo that the man, in the language that the man was speaking in, and they finally published that book, and that kind of led to let's discover and see if this real, is this true. And they're setting up like I think a welcome center and like a place where you can come and learn some things. And all of that. But like on that video, like the lady said though, what she hopes is that it doesn't get overlooked, the cult, that what happened, that it doesn't become commercialized.
That's
but that it's not something like, oh, we're going to the Grand Canyon or we're going to Six Flags or something like that, but that we really pay attention to the fight and the feelings and emotions attached to the people who went through that particular time.
Absolutely. Really enjoyed having this discussion today. Really enjoyed digging in and doing some research to figure out who we were going to highlight. But along the way, you just see so much history that's not out there in the open or being discussed for everyone to see. So kind of similar to Valentine's Day. You don't have to wait till February 14th to celebrate your love with your loved one. You can do that any day. Same thing for Black History Month, day, week, year, whatever you want to do. Find ways to shine light on those folks that had such great contributions to the way that we live right now. I think it's an amazing opportunity to learn that stuff.
Yeah, and I will say this as well: teach your kids. One of my most favorite movies is Coco, and I know that's Hispanic, but I love the way that it brought this thing that if they don't talk about me, I will be forgotten. Right? And so we have to continue the talk, guys. So talk to your kids, take them to the museums, sit down and watch the documentaries together, and teach them what is beyond slavery. Yes, slavery time is important, but teach them beyond. Teach them that we were able to get through, that we were able to do certain things, that ability to become is there for them too, and that there's still some firsts out there that they can knock down the door, they can break the glass ceiling for.
Absolutely. So with that, I think we are going to toast ourselves out, but not before my kiss. We appreciate you all for tuning in with us as always, and until next time on Sip and Share, sing the song. Boom. Boom, 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 boom.
Sip and share.
Wait a minute. We need a metronome over here. That's not sip and share. Sip and share. Let's go.
Thank you
guys.
Put your arm across my hand. I'm still singing.
Straight from the places our God where we met.